Good afternoon to all. My name is Miss Shirley and I will be your MC for today. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our webinar about how an IB education brings out the best in your child. Before we begin, I would like to explain about the meeting etiquette. First of all, join the meeting. I can see that you have already really done that. Secondly, we will appreciate it if you could mute your microphone. We hope that this would give you a better webinar experience. Thirdly, please pay attention to the presenters. Next, should you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and our speakers will address them at the end of the workshop. Lastly, when you are called, you may unmute yourself and start talking. We would like to thank each and every one of you for following and observing the meeting etiquette. We are very excited to introduce our speakers today. Our first speaker is Dr. Vincent Chen. He is the principal of Fairview International School, Kuala Lumpur, the top IB school in Malaysia. Dr. Vincent is a winner of a Lifetime Achievement Awards for Education Excellence awarded by the Kingsley Strategic Institute. Our second speaker is Mrs. Lishan Chu. She is an IB parent of a pair of very adorable twins and an advocate of inclusive education. Both of our speakers for today are very experienced in education. Before I pass the screen to the speakers, let's take a look at the 4 questions that we are going to address in this webinar. The first question is, what is exclusive education and how does it impact your child? The second question is, how does an inclusive education benefit your child? Next question is, how do IB programs promote inclusivity? Lastly, how does inclusive education look and feel from a parent's eye? Dr. Vincent and Mrs. Lishan will address all these questions for us today. Without further ado, it is my honor to present to you our first speaker, Dr. Vincent Chen. Dr. Vincent, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Thank you very much, everybody, for spending the time this afternoon on a Saturday to come and join us and hear what we have to share. So I'm going to begin by sharing with you about the story of John. Now, John isn't anybody in any one of these pictures over here, but it's just a picture of kids. And this is a real story, and John is obviously not his real name, but it's made up. Sorry, the name's made up, but the story is real. So John goes to an exclusive school, and his particular school, he had to work really hard to get there, passing difficult entrance exams and doing his best every day to make sure his portfolio of activities looked the part. Years went by, and in his prestigious school, John became driven by the need to keep up with his classmates in academics, in mannerisms, how everybody has to have the same goal to become famous and rich and powerful. And that was really driving him really hard over there. He was taught by his environment that he was privileged because of his talent, his birthright gifts, that his intrinsic advantage had offered him opportunities that other people could not have. And that's what solidified his place at his very prestigious school, his very exclusive environment. He worked as hard as he could, and while his grades weren't bad, he always felt he had the need to do better because his personal worth was now tied to the status at his exclusive school. Eventually, John became an adult who had major challenges in life. Beliefs like discrimination were natural to him. Discrimination would mean that beliefs that one group of people were innately better than another, that's what discrimination is, then those became natural to him. He had an endless need to constantly drive to himself to be better than others because it was a measure of his self-worth. That he derived relative value from the difference between him and other people. And this caused all sorts of problems. It started with work issues and then family problems as he imposed his psychological constructs on his wife and kids. And finally, he ended up at depression where he saw me. Previously, I was a psychiatrist. So this is one of my cases in the past. This is an example, just a story to set the scene for what an exclusive education has done to one person. And I'll share with you about, exclusive education is essentially any environment or any program that seeks to exclude people and create a customized group of people. So the most common forms of exclusive education are A, exclusion by ability or academics, B, exclusion by wealth status, and C, the worst kind would be exclusion by, say, racial profile or social networking, that you have to be the who's who in order to get here. Those are the types of exclusive education we see. And there are three main problems I'm going to share with you about this exclusive education and what it causes. The first one is an externalized sense of self-worth. I'm going to go through it slowly, so don't worry. The second, impossibly high expectations of what they're supposed to do with their advantages. And the third, of course, is value that's measured relative to others. So the first one is an externalized sense of self-worth. Now, maybe you would have heard of this. It's called locus of control. And for a lot of people, they agree that an internal locus of control is really good. And that's when you start believing that I make things happen. I can control the situation. An external locus of control is where other people determine my situation. And in many schools that practice exclusion, the child's drive to maintain their place in the exclusive school becomes increasingly externalized because they judge that value based on what other people say of them, whether they are worthy of being in that school, so on and so forth. And that means that the locus of control shifts from I control my destiny to they control my destiny. And it happens because of comparative words like, oh, you got to do really well at exams today because you need to maintain your grades to stay in the school. And these shift the reason for doing things, or put it in another way, your locus of control to an external one. Just for comparison, words like do the best you can, or I believe you can do it, drive the locus of control internally.